ready to start our meeting. We don't have a whole lot to talk about today. We just have a little bit on our agenda. So let me get that pulled up. We will share that. Okay. So today we just have a few things to go over, not a whole lot. We have just a few reminders for you. The state testing has begun, and we have a few things for state testing and RSA criteria. Our deadline is April 25th is our due date for you to have the OSTP in so that you can get our early RSA criteria results. If you meet that April 25th deadline, you should expect to start seeing your results on May 16th, and it will tell you RSA criteria met or not met. I've had a few emails recently, people asking what the score is that they have to meet it. It's not a score just like that. When you get your results, it's either going to say RSA criteria met or RSA criteria not met, because only the questions that have to do with standards 2, which is reading foundations, and standard 4 vocabulary factor into meeting or not meeting the RSA criteria. The next thing we have to just kind of give you a small update on is Senate Bill 1906. Senate Bill 1906 is the bill that is currently up right now that is going to change a lot about RSA, including the name. It will now be, if this goes through as is, it will be called the Strong Readers Act. It passed in the Senate and is currently in the House. Monday, it was heard in the Appropriations and Budget Committee, and it passed out of that committee. And so next it will be heard on the Senate floor. In the agenda, which Sharon put in the chat for you, I have a link right here to Senate Bill 1906 if you want to read the bill for yourself to see what all it will affect. They did strike the title of this bill, which means that we could still expect some more changes to come. They can change any of the text in the bill since they struck the title. So you can read, you can click on this and read the bill for yourself if you want to see it as is right now, but just be aware that some changes still could happen to it as it is going through. The next thing that we have is statewide screener. We are currently reviewing the request for purchase from vendors for screeners right now. We still cannot tell you any information about which ones it will be as of yet, but we hope to have that announcement ready by the end of your school year so that you can know which one we will be approving that we would be providing for you, so you can make decisions for your district regarding screeners for next school year. I do want to go back to Senate Bill 1906 for just a second, because if you read through the bill and you're looking at how it would affect kids, just keep in mind that it won't go into effect for the kids that are in 3rd grade right now. So even if this does go through, the kids that are in 3rd grade currently this year will still be under our rules that we're under right now. So just remember that when you're looking at the bill and seeing what it would change, that would be for next school year. Upcoming reminders, we have the end of the year report. Will be opening April 19th. It will close May 31st. At our next RSA meeting, I'm going to discuss that one a little bit further and hopefully have a video made for you, tutorial video for filling out that report, because you do have until May 31st to have that one done. Also upcoming, just be thinking about summer school decisions, 3rd grade retention decisions. Remember that if you have a 3rd grade who has not met the state screener score, and you're waiting on that decision for RSA criteria on state test, or even after you get those, if they don't meet it, that you can recommend summer school for them. And if they do summer school, they can retake the screener at the end of summer school, and you can use that screener score to promote them to 4th grade. Really, that is the only reminders I had for this week. Sharon, do you have any questions coming through that we can answer for people from the chat?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Is Reading Academy only for third graders?
You can provide Reading Academy for other grade levels, and with your summer school, we just have, for third graders, it matters for retention. If you're suggesting it for them and you're going to give that to them and then test them again, but you are welcome to provide any summer reading for any age.
There's a question about what screeners are being reviewed for statewide purchase, but I don't believe we can give that information while we're working through the RFP process.
No, we cannot. I see a question about dyslexia screener being required more than once during the school year. It is only currently required that you give it to students who do not pass the universal screener at the beginning of the year, but you are welcome to give it at any point during the year. If you have a new student that comes in, or you have a student who drops below level, you are allowed to give it later on, but it is only required with those beginning of year scores.
And was the end of year retention promotion, is the paperwork the same? Were there any changes to the paperwork?
The paperwork is still on there. It still should be the same. Yes.
And Diane, great question. We really can't speak to why the legislature sometimes wants to change things. I wish sometimes I knew that.
I see a question about giving the end of the year screener in April or May, and can we give it in March? You cannot give it in March. If you give it in March, that's kind of more of a mid-year. You can give it as just a progress monitoring in March, but for your end of the year score, it needs to be given in April or May.
Hey, there's a question about, are we required now to place fourth grade on an IPRI?
Fourth grade is on an IPRI if they passed by a different pathway other than the state test, then they are placed on an IPRI for fourth grade, unless they're on an IEP. Once they hit fourth and fifth grade, if they're on an IEP, you don't have to do an IPRI on them. Their IEP can just work for fourth and fifth grade. And
I don't think that's changed. I think that's the same.
That is the same.
I think that you can contact Miss Deanne Jones if you have RSA questions.
I see a question about end of the year. Will there be any changes to the end of the year report? I don't think so. It's going to be the same as it was last year. Our tutorial video we had was from some previous years, and we had added some of the dyslexia things on there last year. So I'm just going to work on making a new video, but I think it is still the same as it was last year.
And Deanne, are there parameters for RSA summer reading academies? Where would those be found?
There are some, yes. It has to be, I would have to, for sure where you find those. There are.
Those are found in the administrative rules, Deanne.
Okay.
Sorry, I have my camera off, but no, those are found in the administrative rules. And it is only if you are for third grade and above, it must be 4 days a week for a minimum of 4 hours each day for 3 weeks.
And Melissa, where do they look to find those administrative rules? Like, where can they find
if you
those
look on our State Department website under RSA legislation, you will find the administrative rules, and this one is labeled for Summer Academy Reading Program.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'll see if I can get that linked in there.
And I know we often have questions of, well, can we do for 5 days, same number of days, but 5 days for less time? It's because it is so specific and laid out in the rules. There's no way we can deviate from that if you are calling that your Summer Academy Reading Program. Many of you, though, will recall for the last couple of years, we've gone over the fact that Summer Academy Reading Program, when we name it, it's semantics. When we name it that, we need to follow those administrative rules, and that's usually for third grade and above. If we are providing a reading summer school, which we can still use RSA funds, those rules do not apply. It just needs to be the majority of the time spent on reading.
I saw again in the chat just confirming that you do not have to have an IPRI if they're on an IEP in fourth and fifth grade, and that is correct.
Funding codes should still all be the same. I wish we could figure out what legislators are doing.
I do know that there are still changes being discussed and made on that. So it is an interesting read. It is a long bill. It's about 42 pages, the last I checked. A lot of it has language crossed out though, but realize that if you're looking at that, it's probably not the final version.
Yeah, so we really can't speak to funding in that bill yet, right? Because we still have some more changes to go.
That is correct.
Yeah, so I don't think we can answer that question. The question is it anticipated to pass? I wouldn't make any kind of prediction about
We
what's
don't
going
know.
through.
Yeah, we are definitely listening to debate every time it's heard in a committee or on the floor. It is passing overwhelmingly at this point. There's really only one or two nays every time that it's coming forward. So, but we've seen that happen often, and then it ends up failing or doesn't continue on through the process. So, it's anytime there's anything that's affecting budget that generally in this will have a huge effect there towards the very end. So it's good to be aware of what's going on, but as far as anticipating how exactly what will happen, we're as much in the dark as everybody else. So
There's a question about what months can we choose for mid-year screening? I would say typically it's December, January, but Melissa, can they pick a different month, or does it have to be December, January for mid-year screening?
generally, that's where we keep it is at mid-year, because it's not really mid-year if we're going well beyond that. We're really approaching that. We're trying to do this at semester. That's really the point of it, to see how are students doing after a semester of instruction. So I can't see a reason why we would do that outside of that window.
December, January. Okay.
Okay, so here's a scenario I'll read to you all, and you, the experts, can answer. If a third grader has been scoring below grade level and does not meet any pathways for promotion or good cause exemptions, does the student need to complete the portfolio or just begin the portfolio? These students are not achieving mastery on their grade level work.
So the question is, do they need to complete a portfolio on them? Is that what we're asking?
Yeah. Deanne, would you like me to take that one?
Yes.
Okay, so the legislation states that as soon as a third grade student demonstrates that they are scoring below that grade level target, they must start a portfolio. So a lot of our third graders begin that portfolio process at the beginning of the year, as soon as they go on an IPRI. Now, whether they complete it, sometimes there are situations where a third grade student might not complete the portfolio because it must be on grade level work. And so we've started that portfolio. We may not get all of the work samples completed. It doesn't mean we just start a piece of paper and then let it go. We would not wait until we've seen that they're not going to pass anything else to begin a portfolio, because we begin that as soon as they've demonstrated that they are in need. So if we have this third grade student who's been scoring below grade level, does not meet pathways, in other words, they're not demonstrating success on the screening assessment, they don't meet any of the other good cause exemptions. Remember, the portfolio is one of the good cause exemptions. So that portfolio should already be started and be making a good faith effort to see, is that student able to demonstrate success with those work samples? At that point, then the only pathway left open to this student would be through the student reading proficiency team. So Dana, I know you and Aaron have both been texting me about, it sounds like this situation. Does that address the situation that you're trying to figure out?
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, teachers have started the portfolios, but there's concern around, well, they're not meeting mastery levels. So do we just keep, giving them more assignments and trying to collect more work samples, or can we give them the grace and say, well, that we're going to address this through the SRPT meeting at the end of the year? I think we understood in the past that if they didn't meet the other criteria, we just collected the work samples as they were, the authentic work, and they still needed to complete that. So we just want to make sure that we are telling our teachers correctly.
I think so. And I think as far as like a district, at what point does it feel like you've made a good faith effort of seeing, is this student able to do it? But there comes a point where giving them 50 or 60 opportunities to try to do something other than 4 is kind of beyond ridiculous. So
yeah, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're just
I know.
saying, like, if they, you just collect their work samples as they are. If it's not
Yeah.
at mastery, that informs the SRPT meeting. But we
There-
also don't want our
yes.
teachers giving a bunch of assignments if they don't have to.
I would agree. I think that's exactly where I think you're on the right path there.
I think the question is, is there a majority vote with the SPR, the team? And that would be a unanimous vote, correct? On the SRPT team?
Yes, it has
Yeah.
to be unanimous.
Unanimous.
I see a question again about IEPs and IPRIs, and this is asking if a student is in, because we addressed 4th and 5th grade, if a student is in K through 3 and they're on IEP, do they also have to be on IPRI? And the answer to that is yes. In K through 3, they do have to be on IPRI, even if they're on IEP. It's when we get to the 4th grade mark that changes for them.
I see a question, is there an SRPT form that does not have sample across it? All forms that we have available are on the RSA coordinator website.
I see one about if a student met the end of the year benchmark score for their screener when they were in 2nd grade, but then they haven't met it in 3rd grade. Do you have to start a portfolio? Do you do all those other things? They can pass on screener pathway 2, even if they met that score in 2nd grade and didn't meet it again in 3rd grade. So they would be exempt really from retention because you can use that, but that would still be, on your call if you think that's the best placement for the child. If they met it in 2nd grade and haven't met it again in 3rd grade, is going to 4th grade still the best placement for them? But legally, yes, they have met it. They have met the cut score. They are eligible to promote through pathway 2. Melissa, do you have anything to add to that one?
No, I think you've got that perfect. And I see a lot of questions around the 4th and 5th grade. Nothing is new. That's the same thing that we've been doing the last several years with 4th grade. The legislation is very clear that any student that's promoted with good cause or through an SRPT must continue to have intervention, and we have to document that intervention. So that intervention in 4th and 5th grade can either be taking place through that IEP, or it can be documented on an IPRI, that's why that IPRI is set up for ongoing intervention with 4th and 5th grade. So it's same thing we've been talking about there.
And I got a private one I'm going to ask you all for sure. If the parent is the only one disagreeing with retention, does it just need to go to the district committee?
That's to retain. If not everyone agrees, then the student is retained. It has to be unanimous to promote.
And the way that's worded, I want to add a little bit in there too. Please remember that the parent or the family member is a part of that decision process for promotion or retention. So if the school folks are getting together and saying, okay, we're going to retain this student, and then just calling the parents saying, okay, we've decided we're going to retain, that's not a student reading proficiency team. That's a decision that the school is making and informing the parent of. And that's often where we get parents very, very upset because they feel that they have not been made part of that decision process, and they're correct. They have not. I completely understand that as the school personnel, we generally are on the same page about a student because we've been having data decision meetings throughout the year. We have a good idea of what's going on. But there does need to be an opportunity for that parent to be able to have that. Now, that being said, the parent does not drive the decision. It is a full decision. It must be unanimous. But when we're saying if the parent's the only one that's disagreeing, then do we pull in the SRPT? Then really all we're doing is saying, okay, let's have a meeting to tell you why we're going to disagree with you. So how we approach that makes all the difference sometimes in how we're dealing with our parents. And as we've always said, this is not the first time that the parents should be hearing that there's an issue.
So here's a question about a third grade student does not pass state test. They're put on IPRI for fourth grade. No, well, wait, look, they don't pass the state test.
So how was that student promoted? It was
Yeah, it doesn't say.
So, and I think that comes down to, it's not really about not passing the state test, is were they promoted through a good cause exemption or through the student reading proficiency team? If that's the case, then yes, they must still be receiving intervention until they can demonstrate on grade level work. And that's done through the screening process.
Do you all have any guidance about what types of activities or samples should be in the portfolio? There's a question about if IXL is appropriate.
On the RSA coordinator webpage, there is a cover sheet for the portfolio that has that description of what's there. It is ultimately a district decision as to what work samples are considered appropriate. They must be able to be completed independently, and they must be able to be on grade level, demonstrating those standards. Those are really that non-negotiable part. In other words, if they're done with assistance, having a lot of different accommodations, in other words, we've read it out loud to them, that type of thing, then that's not demonstrating that the work was completed independently and done what they needed to be done. So like using IXL, or any other type of program like that, are all of the assistance things turned off? If it's providing assistance beyond what's there, can you guarantee that because IXL is an adaptive learning program, so it might be taking them down to a lower grade level to give them that work? Is it demonstrating third grade level work? So that responsibility is put on the district if that's a source that you're choosing to use. But the principal and superintendent must be also able to sign off on that.
Are schools required to do a summer academy?
No. Melissa, do you have more to add to that? I mean, the answer to that is no, correct? They're not required to.
That is correct. Yeah, we don't have a separate funding source for it. It is strongly recommended but we also know that some schools do not have the funding for it. And so no, there is not at this time a requirement for that.
Okay. I don't see any other questions coming through. Do you see any, did you see any that we missed, Sharon?
I don't see any.
If you have a question that's just burning that we need to address, you might want to retype it in the chat just in case we've missed it. I know we had a lot come through all at once.
And there's the agenda again for those of you who came in.
Will the free
Here-
screener provided also be going on the MTSS? Yes, we are planning on when we do a statewide screener to make that work with the OKMTSS platform that we've been pushing out as well. But also on that note, no, it is not, the OKMTSS platform is not going to be required next year because we're getting that question a lot. It is something that we're trying to make a convenience for districts. And we do want all of those components to talk to one another. Will we be at COSA this summer? I am not aware of any plans for us to be there, but that would be up for our leadership to decide if we would be participating with that or not.
Okay, I think that's all we have for this month then. So if you have any other questions, you can always email me and I will get answers back to you. And we will be sending out the newsletter at the beginning of May that will have the link and so that we can have another meeting in May. So everybody have a good day. Bye.